Well, thank you for having us from Operation Noah, and James is feeling much better, and hopefully can do these again, these kind of talks again soon. Thank you, Haley, for starting us off with that. Your comment about John Wesley just struck me. I'm one of those that feels that if I follow that dictum, I will inadvertently follow Luther's dictum about sin and sin boldly. If you sat next to me, you would know what I mean, yes. Okay. So, Operation Noah does a number of things focused on climate change and the church. Recently, we started a campaign called Bright Now. And Bright Now is basically calling on churches and the Christian community in the UK to do these three things: divest or disinvest from companies involved in the extraction of fossil fuels, to take a lead and influential role in public debate on the ethics of investment in fossil fuels, and to support and develop the development of clean alternatives to fossil fuels through their investment policies. Now, there are probably more than three, but I can think of three interlocking reasons why these things are important. Quite simply, the continued use of fossil fuels is destroying the planet. And I don't feel that I really need to defend that statement. Even, as been mentioned already, even the Donald J. Trumps and the Rex Tillersons of the world admit, when they're pressed, that climate change is real and that probably, that's their word, humans are causing it. I don't think it's probably, I think it's most certainly. They do dispute how urgent is the task and how quickly we need to move away from fossil fuels. But the overwhelming evidence of climate scientists is that we have to move very quickly. That was my first reason. The second, if the situation is as urgent as the overwhelming majority of climate scientists say it is, it's just simply no longer ethical to invest in a commodity which is already impoverishing the world's poorest populations and threatens the very survival of future generations. In the past, when we understand this danger, it was not ethically immoral to invest in fossil fuels. But the world has changed. Third, as we see it, as Operation Noah sees it, there's also an economic and financial case to be made for disinvestment. The longer we hold on to shares in coal, oil, and gas companies, as the world continues to change and technologies evolve, the danger increases that we will end up with simply worthless shares and we will lose money. More on that in a moment. Okay. The Paris Agreement finally committed the world to staying well below a 2-degree temperature rise. And the world agreed to aim toward staying below 1.5. Now, really, those are aspirational. Those were aspirational in the Paris Agreement. What the nations brought to the table, their nationally determined contributions, would actually give us a rise somewhere between 2.7 and 3 degrees. So well beyond what is safe. In 2011, Carbon Tracker Initiative, which, if you don't know it, it's a wonderful resource. Carbon Tracker Initiative. Just Google Carbon Tracker Initiative. Published this very interesting, they published a report called Unburnable Carbon, which had this very interesting graph in it. If we're to hit the 2 degrees, we're supposed to stay below the 2 degrees, 68% of the world's reserves of coal, oil, and gas are unburnable. If we're going to hit the 1.5 degrees, 85% is unburnable. Now, this is the oil reserves, these two colors. This is what they call proven and probable. This is the gas, proven and probable reserves, and this is the coal. So all of the coal is unburnable if we're going to stay below 2 degrees. All of the coal, including the gas, is unburnable. Now, let me just explain briefly probable and proven. Those are terms used by the investment community, and a proven reserve is a reserve with a 90% likelihood of the recovered amount of oil or gas or whatever exceeding the estimated amount. And so you can see why Carbon Tracker uses both, because it's a very conservative estimate. Now this is a blunt instrument, this graph. Some coal is always going to have to be used in the steel industry, for example. Some oil always has to be used in in other industries. So if we use some coal, we have to use less gas and less oil. Okay. This report, last year there was another report called "The Sky's the Limit" from the Oil Change International, and this emphasizes the evidence of this graph, and it urges that there be no new fossil fuel extraction at all, and that some existing fossil fuel projects that are already being extracted will need to be phased out if we're going to meet the Paris Agreement targets. And the context of all this is that fossil fuel companies continue to spend billions of dollars every year looking for more oil, gas, and coal. 68% of it is unburnable if we're going to stay below 2 degrees. And the last year for which I had figures, 2013, oil and gas majors alone spent more than $300 billion looking for more. Now, this is a famous graph. Has anybody seen this before? No? Okay. Kind of difficult to look at. If we're going to stay below 3 degrees, to have a 33% chance of staying below 33 degrees, our carbon budget, when this graph was done, is 76.8 years. To have a 50%, it's 65.6 years, and a 66% chance with a 55.7 years. Okay, if we're going to stay below 1.5, sorry, this is a few years old. Carbon Tracker has put out a new version of this. If we're going to stay below 1.5, and have a 66 chance of doing it, we have 4.1 years. A carbon budget of 4.1 years. If we're going to stay below 50% of staying below 1.5, we have 7.8 years. And just a 33% chance, 15.3 years. Okay, so you see the time is short. And the reason I don't have the most up-to-date graph there is you can't copy that from the internet these days. They don't let you do it. But if you just Google Carbon Tracker, you can find that very, very useful. Okay. But now some good news. Earlier this year, Carbon Tracker Initiative, in partnership with the Grantham Institute at Imperial College London, published Expect the Unexpected, Disruptive Power of Low Carbon Technology. They used a much more developed methodology than has been used heretofore, and have read that report to get your head around that methodology. It's rather complex. But they emphasize, I'll come back to that, the awesome growth in renewable energy. So these lines here are what the International Energy Agency predicted in 2000 would be the percentage of the world's energy that would come from renewables. And then in 2002 and in 2005, but in reality, this has been the percentage of the energy that's come from renewables. Renewables have just taken off. On the basis of that, and on the basis of the real phenomenal growth in electric vehicles, Expect the Unexpected projects these findings. Solar power will be responsible for 23% of the world's energy by 2040, and 29% by 2050. Contrast that to ExxonMobil's projections, using a different methodology, that by the year 2040, it will only be 11%. Expect the Unexpected also projects that electric vehicles will account for 35% of the road transport market by 2035, and 66% by 2050. In contrast, BP, using a different methodology, says it will only be 6% by 2050. 66 and 6%. Now, if Expect the Unexpected is right, and by 2050, 66% of the road transport market is in electric vehicles, that would mean a displacement. Sorry, I'll say that again. If they're right about these two figures, not just the second one, but like both figures, that would mean a displacement of 2 million barrels of oil per day by 2025, and 25 million barrels per day by 2050. 2 million barrels per day by 2025, and 25 million by 2050. Now, if you remember back a couple years ago, 2014, 2015, the collapse in the price of oil, resulted in that same figure, 2 million barrels per day shift in the supply and demand balance. If this is right, by 2050, oil will be, it won't be worth anything. The price of oil will go way down. Again, Expect the Unexpected is saying that coal demand will peak by 2020, oil demand by 2020, and gas demand, its growth will be curtailed. And in terms of the planet, that means the global average temperature rise will be between 2.4 degrees, 55% chance, and a 2.7, 66% by the end of the century. And if governments exceed their nationally determined contributions, and there's some chance of the energy demand thus dropping, Expect the Unexpected is saying we might have a 50% chance of only having a 2.1 degree rise, and a 66% chance of having a 2.3 degree rise. Now that is the first time I have seen any scenario that comes close to staying around a 2 degree rise. So it's really hopeful. And then just this week, Volvo announced that it would start to begin phasing out all pure combustion engines. That all new models of Volvos from 2019 would be either electric or hybrids. And they would still manufacture the earlier models with combustion engines, but they plan to sell 1 million electric cars by 2025. Now, just put France on hold just a minute. Think about all those cars here in England. A huge rise in electric cars. That, of course, only does any good if our electricity comes from green sources. If you plug your car into the wall and it's being, the electricity is coming from coal-burning power plants, that's no solution. But the UK government has promised just recently that it would phase out coal power plants. Someone not remember what year it's going to be done by. That was just in the news. I think it's 2035?
No,
Sorry, 2025.
I think so, yeah.
While you're doing that, can I just, because actually that is a fundamental misconception, because coal-fired plants are notoriously inefficient. Actually, if all the electric cars only use it, they'd still be more efficient, and it would actually make the coal-fired power stations more efficient.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Coal-fired power stations work to provide electricity to cater for peak demand, generally speaking, don't they? So they're working flat out, despite the fact that in the daylight nobody's using the damn things. So actually, if all the electric cars were plugged into coal-fired power stations, which they're not, they would make the coal-fired power stations more efficient. An electric car is actually anyway much more efficient.
So it would still,
However,
there would still be benefits.
so it's still better.
Okay. But even better yet.
Even better still to do it from renewables.
If we're doing it from green energy. Okay. Then just yesterday, 2 days ago, on Thursday, France announced that there would be a ban on all, there'd be a ban on all petrol cars by 2040. All diesel and petrol cars by 2040. Now, I just happened on the train here today to run into an oil analyst. I saw his magazine that he was reading. And it referred to tight oil. I didn't know what tight oil was, or I couldn't remember what tight oil was. And so I asked him, and it led to a very hurried conversation. So I was just getting off the train at Waterloo. And it wasn't the best conversation. His parting shot to me was, good luck with your church. But in that conversation, he made the point that France, their power stations are really inefficient. And so that there's real issues about having all those electric cars in France. Your comment might be a good comeback to him. I didn't know that. All I can say is, there's a mindset that says change is too difficult. And then that just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And in this conversation, brief though it was, he admitted to me that oil companies are not thinking about the environment. And the decisions they're making about tight oil, which is tar sands and stuff like that, is all based on the economics of producing oil. But I'd like to say that these two pieces of news, and then what's in that report, perhaps is beginning to show a certain momentum. Which brings me to this. Do you remember when every film that you purchased, you took photos on, was either manufactured or developed by Kodak or both? And even some of the cameras, the little cheap cameras, were made by Kodak. This symbol was everywhere in my childhood. why does Kodak have nothing to do with the photographs you take today? Do you remember when, very often, maybe not every weekend, but many weekends, there was the ritual of going to your local Blockbuster and getting a film or two? Why do, when we turn on and stream films on our computers or our televisions, Blockbusters has nothing to do with it? Do you remember when Olivetti was the name in typewriters and possessed a large share of the typewriter market? Why does Olivetti have nothing to do with our word processing today? Quite simply, technology changed, then the market changed, and these big beasts of the market didn't change. And so today they're nowhere. I was at a conference at Guildhall when one of the members of Carbon Tracker was speaking, and he used this illustration, and then he went on to say that what often happens when the technology changes and these big beasts see that they can't keep up with it, they begin to start lobbying governments for special subsidies. Sound familiar? Yeah. So there's an ethical case for disinvestment. There's also a financial case. Back to this slide. If you've got a company, doesn't matter what it is, and 68% of their assets are untouchable, is that a safe investment? Even more if there's 85%. Okay? If your pensions are tied up in a company whose assets, 85% of whom are untouchable, your pensions are probably in danger. And that probably relates to just about everybody in this room. So, there has been this move to disinvest, to take people's money out of these companies. And we have, among others, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. There's a certain irony in that. Bristol City Council, one of the earliest ones. The Church of Sweden, the Lutheran World Federation, the World Council of Churches, the University of Glasgow, Stanford University, Oxford University, but only the coal and tar sands. The British Medical Association, the cities of Oslo, Paris, Berlin, Stockholm, Copenhagen, Oxford, Sydney, San Francisco, yes, Seattle. The Norwegian Sovereignty Wealth Fund, the Guardian Media Group, and the Anglican Church in Southern Africa. Okay. And many, many more. So, to date, $545 trillion, $5.45 trillion have been disinvested from fossil fuels. 730 institutions have disinvested, and 58,000 plus people. Now look, can you read this? This is really interesting. 23% of them are faith-based organizations. 22 are philanthropic foundations like the Rockefellers. They're the Rockefeller. 19% are governments. I think those are mostly city governments. 15% are educational institutions like University of Glasgow, University of Oxford, Stanford University. 12% are pension funds like the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund. 5% are NGOs, 3% are for-profit corporations, healthcare institutions, 1%, and culture institutions, 1%. Sorry, I added these up and they come up to 101. So, okay. But this investment is not just about getting rid of our investments in fossil fuels. It's also about investing in alternatives, not just in green energy, but also in definitely in renewables, but also in I can't remember the word. It's not my figures. I'm sorry. It'll come back to me. But there's other ways of investing that that avoids fossil fuels. Now, let me just say very quickly, the MSCI, the world's leading stock market index company, did a study that showed that investors who divested from fossil fuel companies outperformed those who invested in coal, oil, and gas during the 5-year period, 2010 to 2015. So you can invest in other things and do a better job. Now, it's really important that we start investing in green alternatives. Mission 2020 released a report. This organization set up by Cristina Figueres from the UN. And in this report, they state that $1 trillion is needed for climate action by 2020 to make the global infrastructure compatible with a 1.5 or 2.0 degree target. So there's lots of important things that we should invest in. Okay. Now, we come to the churches. The Quakers in Britain disinvested from also fossil fuels in 2013. In the international world, first the World Council of Churches and then the Church of Sweden disinvested in 2015. The United Reformed Church in Scotland disinvested in 2015. And in 2015, the Church of England, the Methodist Church, and the URC disinvested from coal and tar sands, but decided to continue to invest in oil and gas companies, but to pursue robust engagement with those companies. Now, as was mentioned earlier, a motion came from the Oxford Diocese that I wrote, and I'm rather proud of, and a motion came from the Birmingham Diocese. The motion I wrote called on the national investment bodies of the Church of England to disinvest from tar and tar sands immediately, from oil by the year 2018, and from natural gas by 2020. This was in 2015. The Birmingham motion was much more wide-ranging, and it passed their diocesan synod unanimously, which shows the power of having a bishop inside. Ours was not unanimous, but it was a good debate. It was a good solid win. Okay, but these two motions were never voted on by General Synod. Instead, the EIAG, Ethical Investment Advisory Group of the General Synod, asked that their motion be considered instead. And so Birmingham has decided to withdraw their motion. Oxford's motion has merely been tabled, and I certainly hope that it will reappear soon in another form. And work is being done on that as we speak. But the EIAG chose to, the General Synod chose to follow the recommendation of the EIAG and pursue robust engagement. Okay, so Church of England continues to invest more than £1 million in Shell, nearly $1 million in BP, and in Mobil,
$100 million.
ExxonMobil.
100 million. 100 million.
100 million, beg pardon. 100 million and nearly $1 million BP. Okay. The IAG launched the Transition Pathway Initiative as its engagement framework. I'll say more about that in a minute. But this year, there was a letter from clergy, letter in the Church Times, calling on the Church of England's pensions board to disinvest from fossil fuels and to offer an alternative for some people. That letter was signed by 30 clergy and 3 bishops. That's all. Let's hope something will come of it. Transition Pathway Initiative. This is a wonderful. Well, I was going to say, the decision to pursue robust engagement, I think, would have been a wonderful decision 20 years ago. The Transition Pathway Initiative could be a marvelous failure. It's a partnership of the IAG, of the C of E, and the Grantham Research Institute of LSE. It has brought together more than £2 trillion worth of investments from a number of investors, including the Church Commissioners, the CV Pension Board, the Central Board of Finance of the Methodist Church, the CCLA, and people like Aviva investors, the USS, which is the University's Pension Board, Standard Life Investments, the Local Authority Pension Forum, Local Pensions Partnership, and the Environmental Agency Pension Fund. What this does is it evaluates and tracks companies' management strategy for climate change. How are they going to manage a transition to a low-carbon world? And it evaluates and tracks their carbon performance, their actual reduction of carbon emissions. And not just oil and gas companies, it also measures the utility sector and the automotive industry, among others. Now just think, if all these investors, which have a lot more investments than the Church of England, were to disinvest that $2 trillion, £2 trillion, it would have a huge impact. It would have a huge impact. Unfortunately, the timescale with which Transition Pathway Initiative is working is far too long. It's decades long. And they are starting with the nationally determined contributions, which is leading us to a 2.7 degree rise or a 3.0 degree rise, not the 2 degrees or the 1.5 that we need. Okay. In addition to the Transition Pathway Initiative, the IAG got Shell and BP to pass resolutions that would announce how much they have, carbon emissions they have. That's all. No commitment to lower them, but just full disclosure of what their carbon emissions were. Exxon initially said, no, we're not going to look at that. This year it was passed, but only after their board of directors recommended that it be failed. So I think, and we at Operation NOAA think, that Exxon is really only concerned with its public image and not really with climate change. Okay. The Methodist Church committed to disinvest from tar and tar sands in 2015, but this year 3 districts passed motions calling for the Methodist Church to go ahead and disinvest. And this year, just a few days ago, Methodist Conference came up with this agreement. The JACEI is their equivalent of the IAG. It stands for the Joint Advisory Committee of Ethics and Investment. Okay? Methodist Conference asked them to examine the pace of change in the extractive industry sector in light of the increasing urgency of global action to continue actively to consider disinvestment criteria, timescales, and consultation processes required to disinvest from oil and gas companies that fail to comply with the ethical basis outlined above, and to report to conference in 2018 with the expectation that that any company in which the church invests that has not aligned their business investment plans with the Paris Agreement target of a global temperature rise well below 2 degrees, there would be a recommendation that the church disinvest in such a company by 2020. I think that's a very clever motion. And I'm really pleased it passed, though it did narrowly. The URC is in a similar position. The Roman Catholic Church has no overarching organization like General Synod. It's only the Diocese that can disinvest. Some have begun to do so, and so has some of their religious orders, like the Passionists. The Quakers are the queen of disinvestment in this country, and not only have they as a denomination disinvested a 21 million portfolio, a quarter of local Quaker meetings in the UK have disinvested. Brighthelm United Reformed Church in Brighton was the first local church to disinvest, and they did so in 2014. And many faith groups have begun to switch their energy source now. This is a resource that we brought. I have enough copies for everybody to take one on how you can lead your church to disinvest, your local church. There are 4 steps that we recommend. First, you commit to do so, and if your church doesn't have investments by a PCC or whatever your ruling structure is, you vote that you will not invest in fossil fuels. 2, communicate. So first is commit, second, communicate that to the wider world, especially your diocesan synod or whatever it is, up the chain in your denomination. 3, switch to 100% renewable energy supplier. And 4, reinvest in green energy. Okay, my parish church does not have investments. When we passed the motion, I just made sure we didn't have investments. I really need to go back to my PC and say, we should do this. We should commit not to invest. We should communicate that higher up, though I've got a good reputation in the diocese. But, we've already switched to a green energy supplier, but we should probably make sure it's a really good one, and then we should look about reinvesting. Now, other things that this pamphlet suggests is fossil-free bank accounts. My church really should look into that. There's some good banks out there that make sure There are also different ways of investing. There are investment funds that will manage it for you, and there are places that will help you invest directly. I need to say, although this pamphlet recommends or names these, you shouldn't regard this or my speech as considered financial advice endorsement by Operation NOAA. It is always recommended that competent professional advice should be sought. In other words, you don't make these statements, these decisions lightly. You need to get good advice. One other piece of material we have is we like people to become a Bright Now champion in their parishes, and we have a little leaflet that helps you do that. Okay, I've lost track of time, and I'm sure I'm over. Okay, I have some questions that I want us as groups to focus on, but first, do you have questions for me? Can we spend some time? Yes, ma'am.
Can I just ask where the Expect the Unexpected report came from? Is it in someone's name or an institution name?
It is. It is. I will tell you that. I have that. Okay. It is a partnership of the Carbon Tracker Initiative and the Grantham Institute The Grantham Institute of LSC is also working with, oops. What have I done? Okay.
Where do you want to go?
The, nearly there. I wasn't. It's also working with the EIAG, the Transition Pathway Initiative. So they have a foot in both camps, engagement and disinvestment. But it's a very respected academic body. Yes, ma'am.
About the Baptist denomination.
Well, because the Baptists have a different polity, and each church is autonomous.
But you have the VU Council.
You do, but so I was raised a Southern Baptist. To be an Anglo-Catholic priest is a bit of a journey, but that's another time. And so I can speak more for Baptists in America than here, but I do know that because each individual congregation is autonomous, it is much more difficult for the national bodies to make decisions for them.
No, but the VU could they pass resolutions regularly. Have they not had any regular?
I don't think they have, no. Our chairwoman of Operation Noah now is Baptist. And she lets us know when good things happen in the Baptist Union. And we've not had this equivalent of a resolution.
So it's up to Baptists to raise.
Absolutely. It's, if you're a Baptist.
I'm sure it has come up in the past.
Yeah. Nikki Bull is the one I'm thinking of. She would be a good ally.
Nikki
Bull. B-U-L-L. Yeah. Yes, sir, in the back with the mustache.
Oh, is there any evidence of these large self-obsessed oil companies buying up small companies in terms of anticipating these big changes that are coming or are with us now? Because supply and demand dictates that these people should be doing that.
Buying up what kind of companies? I'm not sure I
Well,
understand.
small companies, start-up companies
Right.
that may be working in all sorts of technological.
Oh, you mean in electric cars and
Yeah,
stuff?
or
and-
whatever's coming along.
One of the things that I and a few others, Operation Noah, have been involved in is the working with the people of the IAG and keep pushing them on the Transition Pathway Initiative to make it a bit stronger. And the analogy I used with them is, no, I don't think the oil companies are evil. He accused me of saying that.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they're like juggernauts or oil tankers. And it takes a long time to turn one of these things. And the Transition Pathway Initiative is seeking to turn it within something that's somewhat comfortable within their business model. And that's just too slow. And I think that does get to your question. I think that they have a mindset that says we still need to spend $300 billion every year looking for more.
Mm. Well, that's a political mindset as well, isn't it?
It is. It is. And it's, yeah, this is why I think the Kodak blockbuster Olivetti is a really interesting analogy. Just in front of them, yeah.
Are you doing sort of other lobbying? Like there's an obvious example with in this country where we seem to be hell-bent on going down the fracking route, despite lots of people wanting. You've just said we don't want any of that anyway. There's all sorts of other environmental problems with that. And linked to that, our sort of reliance on gas to a large extent. If you look at the way a huge amount of new houses are being built, I bet you anything you like that none of them come close to a reasonable energy performance standard. And if they were built to a good energy efficiency, they wouldn't need gas. They could just run off the solar panels on the roof and probably some battery storage and be completely self-contained as they might do in Australia. So is there any political Lobbyists.
Well, I certainly agree with everything you've said, and I do think that with climate change, it being such a complex problem, we need as holistic an approach as possible. I am speaking pretty much as a representative of the Bright Now campaign, and it's about this investment and reinvestment. Operation Noah's remit is towards the church. We have debated and talked about how much we should be lobbying the government, and then we think that it's our job to get the church to do that. So no, we haven't been working in like the housing. I certainly think that's important. We can only do so much.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I mean, picking up what you just said about choosing to lobby the church as opposed to wider politics, would you not acknowledge that there are people outside of the church who are really keen to be lobbying in those directions, with whom Operation Noah could be working?
Well, I say that we actively supported the day a year and a bit ago where people came to Westminster.
The Speak Up campaign.
Yeah, the Speak Up
This
campaign.
week?
Well, I mean,
There's one now.
okay.
First of the 9th of July.
The big one that I went on and spoke to my MP. We were definitely supporting that. But yeah, we're happy to have partners everywhere where we can find them. And there are people on the Operation Noah board who worked more with that than I did. My work has been mostly with this investment. So, yes, sir.
We were talking about housing just now, which we all know is lots of inefficient housing being built around, but most of the Church of England's buildings hundreds of years old. Totally inefficient. But it's a pretty big challenge actually, because often there's planning constraints.
Yes. Well, I can tell you in my situation, my church is not that old. It's 150 years old. In Church of England terms, it's not that old. And it's a beautiful Victorian building with very colorful wall painting. It's a gem of that period. But all the heat goes straight out with very little to block it in. And he was church warden for a while, and then he became our buildings manager. Had a wonderful idea of these kind, what's the term? Something fans. We try to and they just sit up there and they push the heat down, and you can have them on all during the week and turn them off for the services because they make a little bit of noise, and it would just keep the heat down, and we would thus need to use less heat. Wonderful idea. And the DAC said, we don't know anything about this. We've never seen anything like it. No. So, however, having said that, there has been recent news that the DACs are loosening up, especially in terms of solar panels. And my church has a wonderful south-facing roof. And I remember a really heated conversation I had with the DAC who said, no, not possible. It might be possible, but actually, we had to take down a tree. And that tree freed up our hall. There'd be no problem with the hall. It's just a matter of getting the funds together and whatnot. So yes, church buildings are a problem. They're also a wonderful resource. So you weigh it up.
It just would make a fantastic example to congregation. If you're saying we're doing this sort of thing, but the costs involved would be very high. There's all these constraints on English heritage and so on.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Have you looked at the effect that driverless cars potentially will have on the environment?
No, I haven't. But it's a very interesting question. Maybe you can tell me. My immediate reaction is, so I don't drive. I mean, I have an American driver's license, but I've chosen not to drive in this country. I cycle everywhere. And driving I know how to drive. Driving is the most aggressive form of transportation. And if you took it out of the hands of humans and gave it to a machine, it wouldn't be so aggressive and probably wouldn't use as much fuel.
And the other effect is that the movement is going to be that people will not own a car. They will just call up a car. And so, currently you have 2-3 cars per household. That will all disappear.
Yeah, I think that's all really good. I think electric car is really good. And I might actually buy an electric car if it's at some point, with all the. But I have to tell you, and I really mean this, cycling is good. I'm half the man I would be if I didn't cycle. It really is good. I really recommend it.
I hope you don't wear pink lycra.
I wear black and not lycra. Okay.
I think probably, I know my wife has been very delighted that we've extended this thing, because she hates breaking out into small groups. I think we ought to do that a little bit, so that everyone can get a chance to get some ideas discussed. But first of all, I'd like to thank you for such a great talk.